For the better part of 2 decades, the answer to Canada's biggest military question seemed obvious. The future of its skies would be the American F-35. But just as the ink was drying, a surprise pitch from Sweden threatened to change everything. An unexpected, almost shockingly tailored offer for its Gripen fighter has ignited a political firestorm, forcing a debate over the very definition of Canadian defense. This isn't just about 2 jets anymore. It's a clash between staggering cost and bare-knuckle capability, between military independence and a non-negotiable alliance. This is the story of Canada's Gripen moment. To get why today is so chaotic, you have to appreciate the saga that got us here. This wasn't a snap decision. Canada's relationship with the F-35 Lightning II is a political epic, a multi-generational drama of promises made, broken, and then remade. It all started quietly back in 1997, when Jean Chrétien's Liberal government ponied up over $100 million to join the F-35 development program. This was the cover charge, a seat at the table for what was being sold as the future of air combat. In return, Canadian aerospace firms were promised a slice of a massive global supply chain, a very tempting economic prize tied to the most advanced fighter jet ever built. For years, it was just background noise, a project for some far-off future. Then, in 2010, Stephen Harper's Conservative government shoved it into the spotlight. They announced they would sole-source 65 F-35s, framing it as a done deal. This, they argued, was the only jet that could meet Canada's needs. The decision was hit with instant and brutal political blowback. Critics tore into the government over the ballooning cost, the lack of a competition, and the secrecy around the whole thing. The Parliamentary Budget Officer dropped a bombshell report that called the government's cost estimates into question, turning the F-35 into a toxic symbol of government overspending. The controversy became a red-hot issue in the 2015 federal election. Justin Trudeau, leading the Liberals, made a crystal-clear promise. His government would not buy the F-35. Instead, he vowed to run an open, fair competition to find a cheaper replacement for Canada's ancient CF-18 Hornets. It was a promise that hit home with a public sick of the whole debate. And true to his word, once in office, Trudeau's government launched the Future Fighter Capability Project. It was a long, drawn-out affair. Boeing's Super Hornet and Dassault's Rafale were in the mix, but the ghost of the F-35 was always in the room. It was the benchmark everyone was measured against. So in March 2022, after years of study, the Trudeau government announced that the F-35 had won. The plan was now to buy 88 of them. It felt like the end of the story. The political circle was complete. A project started by one Liberal government, pushed by a Conservative one, then cancelled and recompeted by another Liberal government, had landed right back where it began. Contracts were being drawn up. The first payments were made. The Royal Canadian Air Force started prepping its pilots. The debate, it seemed, was finally over. The deal was done. Or so we thought. To be fair, the F-35's win wasn't just political inertia. On paper, and in the eyes of air forces worldwide, the jet is a generational leap. This isn't just another fighter, it's a whole new way of fighting. Its fans don't just call it a plane, they call it a supercomputer with wings or a quarterback on the battlefield. The F-35's main selling point is one word: stealth. Its design is shaped to be nearly invisible to enemy radar, making it incredibly hard to spot, track, and shoot down. In a modern fight against a major power like Russia or China, being able to operate unseen isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a matter of survival. It lets the F-35 slip into hostile airspace, gather intel, and hit targets before the enemy even knows it's there. But stealth is only half the story. The F-35's real magic is its sensor fusion. The jet is packed with advanced sensors, radar, infrared cameras, electronic warfare systems that suck in a staggering amount of battlefield data. The game-changing part is what the jet's computers do next. They fuse it all into a single, easy-to-read picture of the battlespace. Then, it shares that picture in real time with other allied planes, ships, and troops. This networking superpower is what makes it a quarterback. An F-35 pilot sees everything, not just what their own jet detects, but what every friendly unit on the network sees. They can spot threats and point out targets for older, less advanced jets, making the whole team deadlier and more likely to come home. And that's why interoperability is such a huge deal. For Canada, a pillar of its defense policy is its membership in NATO and, more importantly, NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. In NORAD, Canada works hand in glove with the United States to defend the continent. The U.S. and most of our key allies are flying the F-35. Flying the same jet ensures that everyone is on the same page, sharing data seamlessly. When Canada's own Department of National Defence ran its evaluation in 2021, the results were stark. The F-35 scored 95% for military capability, while the Gripen scored 33%. For the mission of high-stakes warfare alongside its most important allies, the F-35 was, by all official metrics, the undisputed champ. It was the price of a ticket to the big leagues. But behind the slick PowerPoints and promises of air dominance, a much uglier story was taking shape. One of mind-boggling costs, crippling maintenance, and design features that seemed bizarrely wrong for the country about to buy it. First, there's the cost. Not just the sticker price, which is massive, but the cost per flight hour, which critics call astronomical. The F-35 is a notoriously expensive jet to keep in the air. This isn't just a headache for accountants. It has real-world consequences. When every hour in the air costs a fortune, you fly less. Less flying means less training for pilots. And less training destroys readiness. Readiness is where the F-35's story gets truly scary. For all its tech, the plane has been plagued by reliability issues. Its mission-capable rate, the percentage of time a jet is actually ready for a mission, has been stubbornly low. A 2023 Government Accountability Office report put the fleet's mission-capable rate at about 55%. Think about that. On any given day, nearly half of your multi-billion-dollar fighter fleet could be stuck on the ground, useless, waiting for parts. For a small air force like Canada's, tasked with defending the second-largest country on Earth, that's not just an inconvenience, it's a strategic disaster. Then there are the software and tech problems. The much-hyped Block 4 software upgrade, meant to unlock the jet's full power, has been hit with repeated delays and has been scaled back. Worse, F-35s delivered in recent years came with a version of the Tech Refresh 3 software that was initially only usable for training, not combat. It's like buying the world's most expensive smartphone, only to be told the OS that makes it smart won't be ready for years. And then, there's the Arctic. Defending Canada's huge, empty, and brutally cold north is arguably the Royal Canadian Air Force's most vital job. And here, the F-35's design starts to look deeply flawed. Its delicate stealth coating needs to be babied, requiring specialized heated hangars to operate in extreme cold, hangars that simply don't exist across most of the Canadian North. Its engine is a powerhouse, but it's also sensitive, meaning it needs to fly from clean, paved runways. This hobbles its flexibility in a region defined by its lack of infrastructure, where the ability to use rough, semi-prepared airstrips is a tactical necessity. The superfighter designed for pristine air bases in Europe and the Pacific suddenly looked like a fish out of water in the one place Canada needed it most. Into this growing cloud of doubt, a surprise offer from Sweden landed in Ottawa. It wasn't just a different jet. It was a different philosophy. The Saab Gripen E wasn't built to be a world-beating, continent-conquering stealth fighter. It was built for a country like Sweden, a smaller, independent nation focused on defending its own turf from a bigger foe, with a philosophy built on resilience, efficiency, and grit. And it just so happened that philosophy aligned almost perfectly with Canada's own unglamorous day-to-day defense needs. Where the F-35 is a supercomputer, the Gripen is a rugged, reliable tool. Its entire design is built for easy maintenance and dispersed operations. This is where it becomes the Arctic king. Unlike the F-35, the Gripen is designed to operate from short, rough runways, including reinforced public highways. It can be refueled and rearmed in minutes by a small ground crew with minimal training. It doesn't need fancy hangars. It was born to live outdoors in the harsh Scandinavian winter. For defending the Canadian Arctic, a place of vast distances and few air bases, this isn't just a bonus, it's a game changer. It means jets could be scattered to remote forward locations, hidden from satellites, and operate on their own for long stretches. And then, there's the cost. The Gripen E has one of the lowest operating costs of any modern fighter. Its mission-capable rates are estimated to be much higher than the F-35s, meaning more jets are ready to fly at any given time. And while it's a fourth-gen jet that lacks the F-35's all-around stealth, it's loaded with cutting-edge electronics, a powerful electronic warfare suite, and boasts superior passive detection sensors, giving it its own advantages. It's a highly capable jet, perfectly suited for the missions the Royal Canadian Air Force actually flies 99% of the time, patrolling our airspace and coastline. But the most disruptive part of Saab's offer wasn't about the jet itself. It was about sovereignty. Saab promised that if Canada bought the Gripen, the jets would be built and maintained in Canada, using Canadian suppliers and Canadian-controlled software. They offered a full transfer of technology, meaning Canadian engineers would have sovereign control over the jet's systems. They could upgrade and modify them as Canada saw fit, without asking Washington for permission. This was a direct shot at the F-35 model, where Canada would forever be a customer, dependent on U.S. logistics and approval. Saab wasn't just selling a fighter, they were selling a sovereign Canadian defense industry. They marketed it brilliantly as the made-in-Canada fighter. It was an offer of military independence that was suddenly looking very attractive. If you're finding this deep dive into Canada's biggest defense decision in a generation fascinating and want to understand the forces shaping our world, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel immensely and ensures you won't miss our next breakdown. The Gripen's powerful pitch could have just been a fun what if for defense nerds, if not for a political earthquake south of the border. The re-election of Donald Trump in 2024 and his administration's moves didn't just create tension, they shook the foundations of the Canada-US relationship. The administration hit Canada with a new round of 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, and made public threats of even worse tariffs on the auto sector, and, most alarmingly, on Canadian-made aircraft. The rhetoric from Washington grew more aggressive, with talk of annexing Greenland and bizarre threats aimed at Canada itself. That was the spark. For the new government of Prime Minister Mark Carney, pushing ahead with a $50 billion lifetime buy of an American weapon system while being hit with what felt like a trade war and political bullying became almost impossible. In 2025, Prime Minister Carney announced a full review of the plan to buy 88 F-35 jets. The official line was that the government had to reassess the deal in this new geopolitical reality. It was a political bombshell. The done deal was now on hold. Things were complicated by the fact that the wheels were already turning. Canada had already paid for its first 16 F-35s. And as the review dragged on, news broke that Ottawa had quietly started making payments for the parts of 14 more jets. This was to keep Canada's spot in the long and complex global production line. Prime Minister Carney defended the payments as keeping options open, but it sent a very confusing message. Was Canada canceling the deal or just pausing it? This uncertainty fueled a political firestorm. The NDP, a key opposition party, publicly demanded in February 2026 that the Carney government scrap the F-35 deal entirely and buy the Swedish Gripen, arguing it was time to partner with like-minded allies instead of an unreliable American administration. Polls showed a surge of support for the Gripen, with many Canadians backing either a full switch or a mixed fleet. The Gripen was no longer a fantasy, it was a real, politically viable option. The done deal was officially undone. In the middle of this firestorm, a third option started picking up steam, one that seemed to offer a classic Canadian compromise, the mixed fleet. The idea was simple. Why choose one when you could have both? The most vocal supporter was Conservative MP James Bezan, his party's defense critic. He pushed for a split buy, a smaller force of 44 F-35s, backed up by a larger fleet of 60 to 80 Gripens. Other reports suggested the government was seriously looking at cutting the F-35 order in half and taking Saab's offer for 72 Gripen jets. The logic was tempting. It seemed to let Canada have its cake and eat it too. The F-35s would be the high-end force, the tip of the spear for NATO missions and intense conflicts overseas. They would guarantee interoperability with the U.S. for NORAD. These jets would keep the generals happy with their fifth-generation tech and secure Canada's seat at the top table. The Gripens, meanwhile, would be the backbone of Canada's defense at home. They'd be the workhorses, doing the daily, unglamorous but vital job of sovereignty patrols over our massive country and its 3 oceans. Their low operating costs would let the Air Force fly more, train more, and have a more constant presence in the sky. Their unique Arctic skills would finally give Canada a credible tool to operate in its own north. And, critically, the Made in Canada Gripen deal would deliver thousands of high-tech jobs and an industrial base safe from the whims of American politics. It sounded like a brilliant, pragmatic fix to a messy problem. It seemed to address everyone's needs, military, economic, and political. But in the world of defense buying, the neatest solutions are often the trickiest. Just as the mixed fleet idea was peaking, a powerful counter-argument came from defense experts and F-35 backers. They warned that a split fleet, far from being the best of both worlds, would institutionalize weakness and cripple the Air Force. The main argument was logistics. Running 2 completely different fighter fleets is a logistical nightmare. It means 2 separate training systems for pilots and mechanics, 2 separate supply chains for spare parts, 2 sets of maintenance depots, and 2 pools of technical experts. For a small air force like Canada's, this duplication would be incredibly expensive and stretch its people and resources dangerously thin. Critics argued any savings from the Gripen's lower flight costs would be wiped out by the staggering overhead of a 2-fleet system. Then there are the Gripen's hidden costs. While the jet itself is affordable, making it fully compliant with NORAD's highly secure communication and data link requirements would need expensive customization. And critics pointed out that even a made-in-Canada Gripen would still depend on a crucial American part, its General Electric F414 engine. This meant true sovereignty would still be just out of reach. Washington could always pull the plug on engine support. But maybe the strongest argument against the mixed fleet came straight from Washington. In a series of shockingly blunt public statements, the U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, delivered a clear warning. He stated that if Canada chose a fighter considered less interoperable than the F-35, the NORAD agreement itself would need to be altered. The implication was unmistakable. If Canada didn't bring a full F-35 fleet to the table, the U.S. would have to fill the gap itself, likely by flying more American fighters in Canadian airspace. This was diplomatic hardball. It turned the debate from a technical one into a fundamental question of sovereignty versus alliance. The American message was clear. The price of the NORAD security blanket is the F-35. The seemingly perfect compromise was now being framed as a direct threat to Canada's most important defense relationship. Ultimately, the choice between the F-35 and the Gripen isn't about a good jet versus a bad jet. It's a choice between 2 different futures for the Royal Canadian Air Force and 2 different visions for Canada's place in the world. It's a genuine strategic dilemma, with no easy answer. Team F-35 is arguing for capability above all else. They believe that in a more dangerous world, the only thing that matters is having the absolute best tech to fight alongside our most important allies. They argue the F-35's stealth, sensor fusion, and unmatched interoperability are non-negotiable. To them, the high costs and maintenance headaches are just the price of playing in the Premier League. Choosing the F-35 is the safe choice. It reaffirms Canada's commitment to NATO and NORAD and keeps our seat at the table where the biggest decisions about Western security are made. It's a vote for continuity, for deep integration with the U.S., and for prioritizing the alliance that has defined Canadian security for 70 years. Team Gripen, on the other hand, is arguing for pragmatism and independence. They believe Canada should buy a tool for the job it actually does, not for a hypothetical superpower war it might fight one day. They argue the Gripen is a jet optimized for Canada's real mission, the sovereign defense of a huge Arctic nation. In their view, its ruggedness, low cost, and high readiness are far more valuable than the F-35's exquisite but fragile stealth. Choosing the Gripen is the bold choice. It's a declaration of military independence, a decision to prioritize a defense policy made in Ottawa, not Washington. It's a bet that homegrown jobs, sovereign control over technology, and fiscal sanity are more important than seamless integration with a sometimes unpredictable ally. It represents a pivot, a belief that Canada can and should forge its own path. This is the heart of the Gripen moment. It has forced a national debate that goes way beyond two airplanes. It's a conversation about what Canada's defense priorities should be for the next 30 years. The story of Canada's next fighter jet is no longer just a procurement file. It's become a national drama, a flashpoint for the country's deepest anxieties about its identity, its sovereignty, and its relationship with the United States. Saab's surprise offer didn't just introduce a new jet. It introduced a new question. Does Canada prioritize total integration with its allies or sovereign control over its own defense? The F-35 represents the continuity of a 70-year-old alliance, a commitment to interoperability that has defined Canadian defense for generations. It offers unmatched power, but at a breathtaking cost, and with a deep-seated reliance on American parts and politics. The Gripen represents a break from that past. It offers a practical, affordable solution tailor-made for Canada's unique geography, with the promise of industrial independence. But it comes with the very real risk of creating a rift in our most vital security partnership. This isn't just about cost versus capability. It's about sovereignty versus alliance. The decision Ottawa makes will send a powerful signal about how Canada sees its role in a changing world. Will it double down on the alliance that has defined its past, or will it forge a more independent path for its future? So, where do you stand? Is Canada's future in the skies American or Swedish? Are you Team F-35 or Team Gripen? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content that explains the big decisions shaping our world.